want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
We are the Mad Men of Masculinity.
Your home for healthy masculinity. We're just real men having real conversations for you.
Good day, Mad Men Mafia.
That's right. I am Kirk M. Samuels.
And I am Jason B. Kendrick.
And we are the Mad Men of Masculinity.
That's right. We're just real men having real conversations for you.
But y'all, speaking of four, man, I've been, this thought came across my mind. And actually, we were talking about it around our house a little bit, man. And, there's one thing that I wish more women would know.
Yes.
Especially women who have a good man, or women who want a good man, or women who want to keep a good man or get a good man. Really, when a good man comes along, I wish more women would know. And this would be a good one for men to chime in on in the comments, women too, for that matter. So feel free to chime in, folks, if you want. YouTube, and you go to our Facebook page as we're live, or wherever you're watching this, and comment. But anyhow, that one thing that I wish more women grabbed a hold of or really understood was how much men, especially as men get older. So I don't know what that break point is. I don't know when I realized it, but I can tell you it's definitely a man thing, and it's definitely as a man gets older kind of thing, how much men value peace.
Yes.
And the idea of peace, man, is so tremendously valuable to us men.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know when it happens, but it's definitely as you get older as a man, the peace becomes more and more a priority. It becomes more and more of like your number one thing. Like, I need peace, and I know for me, it's almost a scary thought because I've been on my own so long now that my life is so peaceful that I don't know. I mean, even some of my friends with the best relationships I know, I'm still like, nah, it's not peaceful enough. There's still somebody else there.
Mm-hmm.
there's still a lady with emotions there. So yeah, I mean, there's something about a man's peace and when he grabs onto it, and that's what's really dangerous for relationships nowadays and for ladies nowadays, because a lot of them haven't figured out how prioritized men are to their peace and how to get on board with that, because there's this movement of feminist narrative of you got to be a boss babe, you got to be a ball breaker, you got to be in competition with your man, you got to be all these different things, and none of those things are peaceful. Every man wants to go out and slay dragons for his woman and make that bacon and bring it home for the kids and and do all those things, but come home to a peaceful house, come home to a sanctuary, come home to a place he can take the armor off, put the weapons down and chill and get peaceful. But I don't know what the deal is, and we've talked about it for years, but it seems to be going on still that peace is not a high priority for the ladies in the household.
So here's something that I realized in my marriage lately, that there is a disconnect with women, not necessarily. I mean, there are a lot of good women. And obviously today we're speaking in generalities, right? I mean, obviously today there's going to be somebody that goes, oh, I'm not quite that way, or I'm a little bit different than that, or whatever. But we're speaking in generalities, right? So one of the things I realized, though, is that there are a lot of great women who hear that, and they can hear the words, and they comprehend the sentence and all that kind of stuff. But the disconnect is they don't know what it means for a man to have peace. They don't know what peace to a man looks like, because peace to a man is totally different than peace to a woman.
Yes.
And so when we say things like we're saying now in terms of the value of peace to a man, some of it is not necessarily they just don't want to or whatever. Some of them want to, but they just don't understand what that peace truly is. And obviously that can look a little bit different, from man to man. That can look a little bit different, based on, the stage or station that a man is in life. But generally speaking, I think there are some very, like a lane on a highway. There's some commonalities that go into what it looks like for a man and the whole idea of having peace or having peace in his home. And so, to the woman that's out there who, and again, I believe there's a lot of good women, but we don't teach women how to treat men. We teach boys how to treat girls and men how to treat women. But culturally speaking, we don't tell little girls what and what not to do involving their interaction with other boys. And so women just have never been taught that. They don't understand what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the different languages and how the feminine processes information versus how the masculine processes information. And those things are polar opposites. The lady processes information usually by speaking it out. She's processing what she's talking. And for the man, it's usually in silence. He wants to go internal and process it. And so for those two disconnects, I mean, it reminds me while you're talking, there was a comedian on recently, which just was hilarious because it's so true that, the worst birthday a man can have is the one that his woman decides she's going to do stuff for him. Instead of like, what does he want? She's like, oh, I know what he wants. I'm going to go do this and that. And things that she thinks he might like, or things that she likes that she thinks he should do or he should like or whatever. And so it's really funny comedian just talking about that was like the worst birthday I've ever had because my woman decided she was going to do stuff for me versus what a man would really like for the most part is, hey, just leave me alone. You're like, hey, peace and quiet. Like literally, let me go fishing. Let me go play golf. Let me go do something that I enjoy that's peaceful. And I think to your point, you're very correct that there's just a disconnect. There's a lot of ladies who really want to understand that, but they haven't been taught that. But because it goes so against their nature of communication and speaking and connection, like all these ladies who say, I want my man to be emotional and show me his emotions. Then he does. And then she's like, I don't know what to do with that. Don't do that again. There's a lot of ladies who want to understand their man's peace and how to support that, but it's so antithetical to how they see peace. Because I think for most women, peace is connection and communication and doing things. Where for a lot of guys, peace is solitude and silence and nature and those sort of things. And so I think for a lot of ladies out there to support your man more, it would be a great idea to maybe have a conversation or maybe even listen to this podcast or others about what it means peace for a man. What is a man's peace and what is your man's peace?
First and foremost, again, like I just said, we don't in our culture, we don't start at a young age with even the concept of girls, females, women, whatever, learning or being able to adapt or again teaching young girls how to treat boys and teaching young women how to treat men. And every boy has been told you don't hit girls. Every boy has been told different things like that. And so but the same doesn't apply. So at the outset of all of this, I would say if there's a good woman who cared about the answer to this question, probably the first challenge is going to be to lay down all of the cultural pressures or all of the cultural norms. And I'll say the cultural norm of not caring what a man wants or what a man thinks, and actually stepping back from what you think is normal or what you think is acceptable or the way you think and all these other kind of things, but to step back from that and to just hear a man and hear men saying, here's what it looks like. And if you don't understand that, then that's reaching out and exploring that whole thing. My wife and I, we had a deep conversation about all this on our last vacation, but being able to, to unpack what does that look like. And so you almost have to deconstruct the whole idea of listening to what a man says and not taking offense to the fact that it's different than the way you think, and it's different than what your answer would be, and accept the fact that that's his answer, and not your answer, and let that be okay to be different.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing is I think when it comes to communication between the sexes, a lot of times women take things personally. Plus, not only do they take things personally, so you say something like as a man, like I just want peace and quiet, like leave me alone or go do something with your girlfriends. You take that personally, like, oh, he doesn't want me. He's like, no, he just wants some alone time. He wants some peace and quiet. But also, there's a lot of ladies, and I run into this all the time, and I'm sure you do as well, that they hear a man like they would hear a woman. They're looking for subtext. They're looking for what does that mean? They're looking for like, well, he said this, but I think he means that. It's like, no, what a man says 9 times out of 10, 99 out of 100, what he says he means. So if he says, I just want to be left alone, like don't do nothing for me, or I want to go play golf, or I just want to go sit by the fire and chill, whatever it is, that's what he means. All these, well, I think he means this, or no, he really means this, and all this feminized kind of logic, that's not what he means. And so to Kirk's point, you got to sit down and be willing to listen and hear and not make up what you think. Because so often we say something and then the ladies will make up what they think that means when what we said is what we meant. And so this is a amazing conversation. This might be a relationship saver for a lot of you. This is something that everybody should have. This should be part of the dating experience. Like men, maybe you need to bring up to your ladies, like, what is peace to you? And then have her explain it. Then you explain and then have her repeat back what you said, because a lot of times what she hears is not what you said. So make sure this is a conversation you have, because a lot of times, and I see this a lot, and I've had the experience a lot where you're so engrossed in the puppy love, you're so engrossed in like making things work, you're so engrossed in like not rocking the boat, keeping the status quo. You don't have these conversations until a year or two into it. Now you're all upset and you got all this tension and all this bottled up emotions, and then it just comes out as an explosion when you should have been having these conversations up front. Like, this is what's peace to me. This is what I need to be functional adult in the world. This is how you can support that. A lot of times we just don't say anything until it's a little too late, and then it becomes a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of that problem stems from hearing what the other person is saying, trying to have your decoder ring in your brain to somehow relate that to the way you think. And if somebody is totally different, you got to be able to just hear them at at their perspective and where they are, and let that be okay. And again, like I said, I think generally speaking in our culture, the whole idea of hearing, or I'm gonna almost even say catering to what a man's perspective is probably outside of the norm. And so this is one of those where would be a great opportunity to just kind of unpack what it means for a man to have peace in his house.
Yes. Yes. Men need peace for health, for happiness, for success. And ladies, we need your support with that peace. And speaking of support, we're going to support ourselves into our first break. We are the Madmen of Masculinity. This is KLDC, and we'll be right back. Had to remind myself not to put ice in my cup because it was going to be all jangly. It just didn't sound good on the air.
See, that's why I got all my little silent twirly things over here that don't make noise.
Yeah. I like this, the silent twirlies. So you got any bullet points, or you just want to go into it?
Yeah, well, I got a couple that we that came out of our conversation between the two of us anyway.
Nice. Right,
Just in terms
I'll
of
let you lead off.
Word up. And we're back.
We
are back. Your boys are back. Madmen of Masculinity, KLDC, 12:20 a.m. in the Mile High City and on the interwebs. Everywhere. We got some stuff lining up, man. We got some guests coming, some pretty interesting conversations happening in the future, man. It's
we're having a good one today,
it's going to be some exciting times. The one today, man, we're talking about peace. To a man. What does it look like? If you're a good woman out there, or and again, this is one of those great topics for for some chime in. Fellas, here's a good opportunity. You got fellas talking about stuff. Speak your mind, throw your 2 cents in there. What do you think? You agree? Do you disagree? What does it mean to you? What's your perspective? All those kinds of things. And one of the things that I realized in having this conversation around our home in in our marriage is that, and again, all of this, I'm gonna say, I mean, I'm gonna try not to keep saying it because I'm gonna say it and it is what it is, but we're talking in generalities, right? So,
Yeah.
there's
Get
always gonna be
butthurt, just let it go.
outliers, there's always gonna be all that kind of stuff. It just is what it is. 51%, 51 out of 100. How about that? Let that be the standard for the discussion. But generally speaking, to a man, or I'll say to a woman, peace equates with harmony,
Mhm.
and most of that harmony is relational.
Yeah.
She's peaceful, she's content when her relationships are intact, whether it's family, whether it's primarily with her kids, and spouse, her friend, etc., her coworkers, all that kind of stuff. And so generally speaking, that peace and harmony go together. For men, peace and quiet goes together. And
Amen.
for us, it's like, growing up, my great grandmother used to say, I want some peace and quiet around here. But for men, peace and quiet generally tend to go hand in hand. And unfortunately, that is very counter to a woman's experience because her world is very rarely, if ever, quiet. She's always thinking about something. She's always probably to some degree worrying about something, um, whether she's laying in bed, whether she's taking a shower, whether she's cooking, whether she's driving, whether she's watching TV or just whatever. Her wheels are spinning. It's very difficult for a woman to just have, the whole idea of just quiet. I mean, quiet is kind of a relative thing, but to men, normally what equates for us as peace really hones down to some form of quiet. Quiet exists within masculine peace.
Yeah. Well, and for the ladies out there, I mean, I know we've joked about it, comedians have joked about it, we've said it on the show, men have the nothing box. I know you ladies don't have the nothing box. One of my favorites, I think TED Talks or presentations was a guy who talked about men's versus women's brains. Men's brains have
Mhm.
boxes. We put things in boxes and they stay in those boxes and they don't mix and they don't touch. Women's brains are more like the spaghetti. Everything's connected and it all connects together. And for men, peace is being able to go to the nothing box. Yes, as men, we can think about nothing. We can go to that blank space like meditation. When we're fishing, when we're playing golf, the reason we love it so much is because when we get into that zone, our brains basically turn off. We're just in the moment. We're present. We're there. We're not having to think about anything, process anything. We're just present in that moment, which usually equates to peace and quiet. And we understand, especially for guys like Kirk and I who've done the research and been through the relationships and done the therapy, we understand that's not true for the most ladies. I know there's some ladies who can sit and read a book in silence, and I'm sure there's a lot going on in her brain while she's doing that, but there's still some peace and quiet there. But for most guys, getting into the nothing box, not having to think about anything, not having to do anything. I mean, there's so many jokes about it, but it's so true. It's like as soon as a man gets to that space where he's ready to sit down on the couch and turn on the game or pick up the book, as soon as he sits down and she sees him sitting down, getting ready to relax, she's like, hey, what about this and that and the other thing? That's destroying his peace. Allow that man, especially when he comes home, to have some peace. If you have a honey-do list, give him time to do it on his time. The biggest destroyer piece in my past relationships and the things that, because I was ignorant, and a lot of times my partners were ignorant as well of how we operate together. But if you ask him to do something and he says yes, that means he's going to do it, but it may not be on your time schedule. If you give him 30 seconds or 3 seconds for a lot of ladies to jump up and take out the trash or do whatever it is you ask him to, you're destroying that man's peace. And a lot of his self respect and his fortitude is going out the window as well because he wants to come home, have some peace and quiet, and then do things on his own time. So trust and believe that that man's going to do what you ask him to do. It's just not going to be on your schedule.
One of the hard things for men to conceptualize is how loud a woman's existence is. Again, how loud her mind is, and how how much is really going on in her brain. And the volume is up just all the time with all kinds of stuff going in all different directions. I mean, it's like the craziest LA. highway interchange that you can imagine, and all of the things connect. Like all of the things are part of the same thing, and at the same time, probably one of the most difficult concepts for women to comprehend is the fact that men, we right out of the gate. I'm glad it came up, and I mean, I'm glad it came up, and you brought it up right out of the gate. Women can't comprehend that men can think about nothing, and we can probably do it on command. Like, every guy can probably say, I tested myself with it. That, man, at any moment I can say, you know what, I'm just going to think about nothing right now, and I can do it. Like, I can legit, And so when we're sitting there on the couch or wherever driving, and I'm just driving along, and she's sitting in the passenger seat, and she says, "What are you thinking?" And I say, "Nothing." That's like the most far off concept, because she's thinking about everything, right? And so for us, that nothing box is probably the one of the most valuable things that we're willing to protect, and that because again, is peace and silence, is peace and quiet in that box. And you take things like fishing, like hunting, like playing golf, like the things that guys like to do generally. A lot of times it involves nothing, and it involves quiet. It involves silence to some degree. I think there's a little bit difference between quiet and silence. Um, I think quiet is a volume and silence is a place. But in any case, I mean, when we go out and play golf, man, the whole point is to be silent. I mean, like, you hit the ball best when you're silent still. Like, there's that, when you tee up to the ball and you square up, and all of a sudden when your brain starts going crazy and the wind, your club face, and all this other kind of stuff, that's when you got to step back. Yep. And then you approach the ball again, because we're pursuing that. But that nothing box, that's the thing that if she can find the combination, she don't even have to find the combination. She don't even have to go in the nothing box, because if she goes in there, it won't be nothing no more. It'll be a whole lot of everything. But to just recognize the sanctity of that nothing box, man. When you brought that up, man, I'm sitting here like, dude, that is it, bro. I mean, that nothing box is sacred to us as men.
Yeah. I mean, you bring up golf and the silence of golf on the golf course, like talking a man's backswing on the tee box, you gonna start a fist fight. Like, you don't, that's sacrilegious. You don't do that. Just like ladies, when a man's trying to be in his nothing box and think about nothing, and you come in with the "what are you thinking?" or "why are you just sitting here staring off into space?" is because I'm at peace right now, and you're disturbing my peace. Like, I understand it's different than your peace or what how your mind works, but this is how my mind works. And there's some jokes out there, and there's some comedians talk a lot about ladies on birthdays, and ladies doing this for their man, that for their man, and then they talk about the best present you can give your man is just peace and quiet. Like, yeah, get the kids, take them someplace to the movies or whatever, leave him a note like, "Honey, you got the house to yourself for the whole day." That man's gonna be super excited and happy. He gets to sit there and do nothing and be in his nothing box for hours. He's gonna at some point he's gonna be like, "You know what? I've been in my nothing box long enough. I feel pretty peaceful. I'm gonna go do the chores, or I'm gonna go do the lawn, or I'm gonna go clean the gutters. I'm gonna go do something for this woman because she gave me the best present I ever get, a little peace and quiet."
And this is why I say that quiet and silence are two different things, and one's a volume and one's a place, because sometimes our silence and our peace can be in a loud place. I mean, sometimes he might be in a wood shop somewhere, wearing headphones because it's so loud. He might be at a gun range or somewhere. He might be at a football game or on a couch yelling and screaming at the TV, but at the same time be in his nothing box, because he ain't thinking about nothing. And the last thing he wants in that nothing box when he's yelling and screaming at the TV is questions and stuff he's got to discuss and what color are the uniforms, and all
Who's
this other
that?
kind of stuff. Do
What's
you
that?
all like who is he married? Who isn't that the
Mhm.
player that's dating so and so?
Yeah.
And we no, you're messing up the silence. And so, man, that nothing box, man, is absolutely sacred. And for women to recognize the importance of that, and to figure out what is her husband's nothing box. What is that? Where is that? What does that look like for him? Because again, it might be someplace that's not necessarily quiet, but that's where he can find silence and stillness. But that I'm telling you, man, for her to recognize that nothing box, man, that's the main ingredient. That's the protein in the recipe for his peace.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up because yeah, it's a lot of times it does look different for each guys. There's some guys their nothing box is in the garage, banging
Mhm.
away, working on the car, woodworking, using the saw, the lathe, whatever. Sometimes it's playing Call of Duty. They're just in the zone. And like even to your point of like watching the game, we're present. We're not thinking about anything, we're watching and absorbing. And that's why all the questions coming in messes with our peace and messes with our flow because we can't absorb everything and pay attention to you. We're focused creatures, we're predators. Our eyes are focused forward, so we're focused on something, and that's our piece. And that piece could look very different. It could be video games, could be sports, could be woodworking, could be working on the car, could be mowing the lawn, could be playing golf, or could be literally sitting in a boat on the water, thinking about nothing, just soaking up God's nature and the silence of nature and trying to catch a fish. I mean, these things are all ways for men to find peace and surrender to their nothing box. And
Mhm.
speaking of surrender to our nothing box, it's time for us to surrender ourselves a break. So we'll be right back. We are the Mad Men of Masculinity. You're listening to us on KLDC, and we'll see you in a minute. Boom shakalaka.
Um, yeah, I don't want to have to discuss what ball players are dating who,
Yeah,
and all that kind of stuff, and yeah, and how old is this guy, and all this. I ain't trying to
yeah.
like do this. Yeah, it's
I'm just trying to
third and
watch the
eight.
game. Yeah,
It's third and eight, and if we don't get this first down, the game is over. I mean, I ain't even got time to be answering no questions. Well, that kind of junk, man.
yeah, yeah. No, that's yeah. I think yeah, we got to talk about, how can guys cultivate their peace? Like how maybe they
Mhm.
can support their wives and supporting their peace.
Oh, let me stop. All right, here we go. Your boys are back.
We're back,
We are
back in the house.
back. Mad Men of Masculinity, KLDC 1220 AM in the Mile High City on the interwebs everywhere. Holler at your
Everywhere.
boys. Facebook, YouTube, man. I don't know, TikTok,
Yeah,
podcast, whatever,
we get
wherever it
around.
is, man. We get around, man.
It's
We
like
get
that old
around.
Digital
Holler at
Underground
your
song
boys.
with Tupac. I get around.
I get around. That's right. That's right, man. So yeah, we talking about a man's peace today, man, and what that
Yep.
looks like. And and so far we've settled on the fact that the main point of so far is our nothing box, our ability to go into our nothing box and on demand turn it off and just think about nothing, and that can be quite perplexing to women in general because women don't have that place.
Yep.
They don't know how to go in there, and I think sometimes women get offended that they aren't in our nothing box.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
if
we
they
can't
come
let you in
into our
there.
nothing box, if they come into our nothing box, it's our clubhouse. You can't
Yeah.
come into our clubhouse like little rascals, man. We can't have no thinking girls in our, the She Man Woman Hater Club. I
Yeah.
mean, you can't have, and so that nothing box again. I think she might get offended that her being in that nothing box doesn't make our nothing box better. And so and so it's an ego thing for women to recognize that maybe this is not about me.
Yeah.
Maybe this ain't about me. Maybe I need to step back and listen to him and let him do his thing. But every guy, should probably find out where his nothing box is, and should probably, communicate that, and probably, find that place where he can get away and get to that thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's a conversation you should have in every relationship, and I think that's actually a good indicator, whether it's a red flag or green flag for your partner. If you can tell her where your nothing box is, you can tell her what brings you peace. Like, do I like to go in the garage and work on the car? I like to go play golf. And if she's okay with that and she supports that, big old green flag. If she's like, well, what? Well, why do you want to be alone? Well, can I come with you to play golf? Can I come in your nothing box? Red flag, run away real
Mm,
fast because
mm.
she's not there to support your peace. And it's just an uneducated woman. It's not like there's anything wrong with her. She's just so used to her way of peace, her way of harmony, her way of connection, which is antithetical a lot of times to a man's way of peace and a man's way of calming down and having that peace and quiet. And so to work together, to be a partnership, we've got to respect each other's boundaries. We got to respect each other's needs. And so telling your woman that this is how I find peace, this is what works for me, and having her support that means now you're going to have more energy, you're going to have more focus, you're going to be more rested to help her with her stuff and all the things she wants you to help her with. Be the provider, be the protector, fix the house, fix the car, mow the lawn, do all those things she wants you to do around the house because she's honored your need for peace.
And conversely, to women, I would say it's a very good sign if you have a man, if you meet a man, if you find a man that knows where that place is, that has that nothing box, that knows and is able to communicate with you, like, hey, here's the thing that I like to do, and when I'm able to go do that, that makes me a better man to come back, to be with you. My saw gets sharpened when I'm off doing that. And again, that thing doesn't even necessarily have to be, some chest pounding activity. It doesn't even have to be, rock climbing or skydiving or whatever. It could be, whatever his jam is, bowling, golf, some kind of sport, some kind of activity, something like it, like you said, something he likes to do around the house, tinkering with stuff, fixing something, working on the engine in the garage and whatever it is. But for a guy to have that and to know that speaks to a very well adjusted or well evolved man to know and to be able to communicate that and be like, hey, you know, I'm not out doing nothing bad. I'm just, this is just my thing. I just want to go play golf, and when I do, I am better recharged and more of the man that you want me to be when I come back to you.
Yeah, I mean, one thing, especially ladies in relationship, always remember men are more task oriented. We get more peace and get more purpose and fulfillment out of completing tasks. That's why a lot of times it's playing golf or going hunting or working on the car. But we like to do those things in silence, and so we can be, we can focus in on those things. That's what sharpens our swords. That's what builds our masculinity. That's what makes us the men you love us to be. And so, just understanding that we're not as relationally oriented. We're not as communicative because we like to get tasks done. We like to do things. That's why there's always that, everlasting battle with men and women when she wants to communicate and he wants to fix it. It's because we're task oriented. And so it takes a very, well educated man to go, okay, do you want me to fix it or you want me to just listen? Is this a listening or a fixing? You want me to fix? Okay. And then taking on that role. We'll do whatever you want us to do. Just let us know. But just understand too that men are very task oriented. So a lot of times when we want to go do things without you, it's not a negative to you. Is we want to be able to accomplish this thing, get it done, fill ourselves up. That's how we fill up our cup by accomplishing things, mowing the lawn, working on the car, playing golf, going hunting, whatever the thing is, reading a book, sitting quietly reading that book. I mean, once we finish that book, that's a task checked off. We completed that, but it gives us time to recharge. And if you can understand that us doing our task is not anti you because we don't ask you to be there, it's because we want to be focused on the task to get it done. It's not a, chide against you or saying like, oh, this is, I don't want you around me. It's like, no, I just want to focus on my task. And as we discussed with the football and a lot of other things, there's a lot of questions a lot of times that come in. Why are you doing that? Where's that go there? What's this about? What's that? What that tool? What's that do? That
Yeah.
just throws us off. We're single lane guys. We're single lane minded. We want to be in our lane doing our thing. And all the questions like exits and roadblocks and construction is just slowing us down and getting in the way. We just want to be able to focus on the task. Let us focus on the task, and we'll come back to you much happier.
When you think about the idea of sports, while people are doing the sport, normally there's not a lot of discussion. Normally, there's not a lot of dialogue in
A whole lot of
sports.
doing, a lot of
It's
talking.
it's a lot of it's a yeah, definitely primarily doing, not a whole lot of discussion, right? And um so I say that to say, when he gets involved in activities that are, that are man centric to him or masculine centric to him, whatever that could be. I mean, shoot, that could be cooking for all that matter, but um
Let
it
that
could
man
be
cook.
crocheting. I don't know. Whatever it is. Point is, most of the time, that thing that he's involved in to get into that space, that head space and that heart space, doesn't involve a whole lot of discussion. It doesn't involve a whole lot of um, explanation per se, or just working things out, or it's not relational. It might be interactive, but it's not relational. Matter of fact, sometimes it can be adversarial.
Mhm.
Where it's competition, between one versus one, or many versus many. And then ironically, even through that competition, through that adversarial relationship in sports, do guys kind of grow closer together? So, the idea of his nothing box being a place where we work out stuff, where we talk about stuff, where we figure out stuff. No, he ain't trying to figure out none of that. He's just in his space. And so
To respect that it honors your man deeply.
Yeah, and one thing, like, okay, as an example, my ugly green checkered flannel shirt is peace to me. My ugly green recliner is peace to me. Stop trying to take away my stuff that makes me peaceful, because this shirt is comfy, it's warm. Yeah, it's ugly, but that's why I wear it in the house when I'm chilling. The recliner, it's not pretty, but it's comfy, it's warm. That's what I use. That's my spot. That's what I go there to focus. I go there to get peaceful. I go there to get quiet. That's my spot. If you honor that and give a man time to recharge, give a man time and space to go to his nothing box, he becomes a better person, better partner for you. But it takes a strong woman, an educated woman, a woman who loves her man and respects her man to allow him to do those things. Because I get it. It doesn't make any sense to you. But just like a lot of stuff that you ladies do, doesn't make sense to us. The fact that when we say let's get peaceful, or let's have a nice quiet evening, and then it's talking about this thing and talking about that thing, and then all these stories that we can't follow because they go all over the place, and we know that's peace for you because that's how you process. Doesn't make any sense to us, because peace to us looks very different, and it's one of those things that we have to communicate. We got to figure out what's my partner's piece, what's my man's piece, what's my lady's piece. How can we support that? Because one of the things that has gone off the rails in the last 50 years is why homes have become so combative and competitive. The home should be peace. His house should be his castle, should be his refuge, it should be his sanctuary, should be your sanctuary too. But then you come home and it's all competition, and what you didn't do, what I didn't do, and all these different things, and it's just arguments and competition, and it's not peaceful. And then you wonder why marriages keep breaking down and relationships keep suffering, because we go out in the world to fight in the world and slay these dragons and make this money and build these careers and do all these things. Then we don't have any place to recharge. We don't have any place to rest. We all need 8 hours of sleep. We all need to rest and recharge. But going out in the world and slaying dragons and making that money and making that bag and then coming home and have to fight again, that's not restful. That's not peaceful. That's not what anybody wants.
yeah. Yeah, when he comes in the door, when he comes to his place of dwelling, his sanctuary, if nothing exists in his house. When I say nothing, I'm talking about the nothing box or nothing room or whatever you want to call it in his house. When he's coming home to that, he's coming home to recharge from that. He's coming home to heal from all the dragon slaying that he's been doing all day. Um, and to be able to experience the opposite of that, whether it's being able to focus on or not focus on something, is fantastic. To get out of one side of the brain, because if he's on one side of the brain all day long and just grinding and grinding and grinding, man, it's a relief to be able to get outside of that part of the brain and get to the other side of the brain where it's just he just gets to be and not do. Being able to be is a gift. And so, being able to have that, again, that's a gift to him. And to be able to recognize, speaking to a lady, to be able to recognize and honor and acknowledge that your man has that need, and to be able to honor that, man, you'll get that back 10, 20, 30, 50 fold from him. A good man. If you're with a jerk, I can't help you. But a good man will take that, and he'll multiply that, and he'll make sure you're protected at all costs.
Hmm. And speaking of protected at all costs, it's time for ourselves to protect that last
Yep.
break. We're the Madmen and Masculinity. You're listening to us on KLDC or on the internet worldwide, and we'll be right back.
I don't know what happened there, man. My headphones kind of
Yeah,
went out, and all of a sudden
yeah.
my
The,
phone was
the
like,
sound.
"Yeah, I'm not doing that."
Oh,
Yeah, all of a sudden my it was like, "Yeah, I'm not doing that no more." And then
I'm glad
I
you're
don't know.
on
I
it. 'Cause
think,
I was like, oh, if his sound keeps going that bad, it's gonna be a redo.
and then I think, I don't know. Even though I'm on Do Not Disturb, I think somebody tried to call me.
Oh,
I should
yeah.
probably go on airplane mode. I wonder what
There
happened.
you go.
Oh, RJ just tried to call me. That's what it was.
That's what it was.
4 minutes ago. We'll go on
Man,
airplane
busy
mode.
right now,
Oh,
son. Doing things, son. Don't be calling me
well,
right now. I'm busy.
he's TAD up in Rhode Island
Ooh,
for like 3 months.
yikes.
But I'll give him a call back in a little bit. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's
we'll
what
have
it
to
was.
talk more about the boxes and the adjustments. Like why guys sit in the car for 15 minutes before they come in the house. They got to
Yep.
switch gears. They got to
hmm
switch boxes.
hmm All right, here we go.
All right.
Your boys are back. We are the
Back in
Madmen of
town.
Masculinity. KLDC, 1220 AM in the Mile High City. Talking about peace today, a man's peace, and what that might
Gotta get
look
some
like. What does that
peace.
look like? What does it look like, man? He wants peace and quiet
Mm,
so
yeah.
that he can go into his place of silence. And ladies, this is important um, because when you value that, he values you. When you value that, he values you more because
Oh,
you represent his avenue to that. And that's the beautiful part. When it works out great, you become part of that, even though you're not in that. You become the facilitator to that. And when you can become the facilitator to making sure your man has peace, then all of a sudden, again, your cryptocurrency value goes up. All of a
mhm.
sudden, for a good man anyway. Again, if you're with a jerk, I can't help you, but a good man will say, "Ooh, I got this one right here. This one, the force is strong in this one." And he will value you. He will nurture you more. He will see you, and he will reciprocate that to you. He'll make sure that you get whatever kind of peace you need as well, and that comes with communication. But because we do have that side of us, and so there's a part of us that even needs to transition into that sometimes when we come home from work.
Yeah, it's something that, if you have a good man that's well educated and he's willing to sit there and listen to you vent without trying to fix it, he needs you to understand that men's brains are boxes and we have to transition from one subject to another. And it takes a second to switch boxes. We got to put that one box, close that box, put that back in the thing, and then get the other box out. And that's why women confuse us so bad because you're connecting all the dots and all these different boxes and all these different subjects and all these different places. And it takes us a minute to switch subjects. Like so many women, and I've seen it. I've seen the TikToks. I laugh all the time because I used to do it too in relationships. You get home, as a man, you get home from work and you got to stop for a second in the driveway. You got to sit there for 5 minutes to 15 minutes, sometimes 20, depending on your day, to switch gears, to change boxes, go from work mode to family mode to house mode. Because you don't want to, as a man, we like to compartmentalize that work box, all that stress, all that craziness, all that drama and all that stuff that stays in the work box. And we put that work box away. Then we open up the family box so we can be with the wife and the kids and the family and do that. And so we got to get into that family mode. And so that's why a lot of times we stop because we're changing boxes. And if you are a loving woman and you care about your man, you care for his peace and his mental health, let him change boxes. So many times there's this, because your brains are so connected and you're bouncing from one subject to the other, and he's just starting to get glassy eyed. He just can't follow. And it's like watching ping pong and basketball and tennis all at the same time. And he just can't follow the ball and doesn't know what's going on. Give that man a break. Our brains don't work as fast as yours. We're not all connected. We're trying to catch all these boxes, and it looks like somebody's blew up the storage unit. There's just boxes and paper everywhere, and we don't know what's going on because we tried to follow your story.
I've found that so since I work from home, there's really not like a commute. Like there's not a commute when I get home and
How you change boxes,
pulling into the
man?
garage and all that kind of stuff. I found that, a lot of times I will, when I'm done kind of all my, whatever I'm doing for the, day in terms of work, when I'm ready to make that transition, I found that, a lot of times I'll go and take a shower.
Hmm.
Sounds weird, but I'll
No, it's
go and take a shower and just kind of, woosah,
yeah,
get some steam going, decompress in there, and then come out and I find myself in a different mode. When I head downstairs, some guys might, they might take the long way home. They might sit in the car for a little bit. Hopefully they don't get caught up in bad habits, like got to go to a bar every day and drink your way home. Hopefully that's not the case,
hopefully.
but again, every guy kind of has their jam. But for the most part, there was a time when I wasn't working from home that when I got home, the first thing I did was go up and use the bathroom, um, and use the
A
bathroom
lot of
for a
guys do
while.
that. Yeah, a lot of guys do that.
Yeah,
Hide in the bathroom.
go in the bathroom and I got to use the bathroom, and I train my body that, this is what we do at this time when we get
Yeah.
home. And so, but whatever that is, again, it's about transitioning from one side of the brain to the other, which takes men a whole lot of effort and a whole lot of work to do, which is kind of why when we get outside of the work and grind and Dragon Slayer brain, and we get into, the home recovery woosah side of our brain, man, it's a great place to be, and we really like to stay there as much as we can.
Yeah, and for you ladies who are good women who honor your man and love him and want him to be peaceful and supported and can, cared for as much as possible. If you want to know if you're doing a good job, most men who have that peaceful home and that caring partner who values his peace and his mindset and his heart and all those things, usually doesn't take very long for that transition. You're like, boom, I hit the bathroom, turn around, gone. Boom, I hit the garage, turn around, in the house. He wants to come home. He wants to unpack. He wants to be there with you in his sanctuary because you're peaceful. And so you've done a great job. So if your man doesn't ever sit in the driveway, doesn't ever try to like take the long way home, if he like can transition from work to home real quick, you're doing a great job because he feels like you're his peace and he can come home to his peace. And for many of us, sometimes, if that's not the case, it could just be a learning, he's just figuring out if it's a new relationship or a newer marriage or whatnot. Maybe he's just figuring out how to make that transition. And, it's just like you ladies have your monthly time, men work is different, budgets are different, timelines are different, projects are different. So maybe he's had a light day, he comes straight in the house. Maybe he had a hard day. He's gotta sit there and process for a minute because what most men don't wanna do, being the provider, the protector, the presider of that home, is to bring that stuff in the house. So, however long it takes us to process that, we're gonna do that. So, if your man's processing, allow him to process. That's honoring and respecting his process and his peace. If you allow him to process and he's not gonna bring that stuff home and put it on you. If you don't allow him to process and that stuff's gonna come out sideways and he's gonna lose his temper and get angry and there's gonna be some big huge fight about nothing because he wasn't didn't get the time to process. And remember, ladies, men don't process most of the time by talking. We process silently by putting that stuff back in that box and putting it back on the shelf. Allow your man to process. That will help ensure his peace and your peace in the relationship.
And here's the reality, him having that time to process, and the fact that we go inside and process in here sometimes, um, it's not a reflection of you. As a matter of fact, to be quite honest, you might not even want to know what he's thinking. I mean, where if he walks in the door or if he's sitting there kind of processing or doing his thing or whatever, and for you to say, what are you thinking? You know, quite honestly, sometimes the answer is nothing because I'm thinking about nothing. Sometimes the answer is nothing because you can't handle the truth. Like our intro. I mean, it's the Colonel Jessup. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth sometimes. And that's okay. I say it's okay because I live in a world where I have other men that I live life with, and I do process things. I do have people in my life and in my circle that can help me unpack things if I really need some man unpacking kind of stuff. It's like
Yep.
when you move, there's some furniture where you need a dude, right? I
Yep.
mean, you need a
Need help.
hoss, and there's some mental furniture. If I need a hoss, I can I got guys that can help me move some serious emotional furniture if I need to. And there are some things that I will unpack with her, but sometimes for the big heavy stuff, like babe, you don't, you don't want this smoke right now. And so being able to unpack that, being able to deal with that, sometimes I really do just have to process it. I really do just have to chew on it. It's like when you eat, sometimes you got to chew on stuff before you swallow it. Sometimes I'm eating steak, sometimes I'm eating soup. So when I'm eating steak, give me a minute, before I
Yeah,
swallow
I
the
got you.
daggone thing. Yep.
Well, and that's a great indicator. I mean, I know a lot of times ladies take it personally, but it's not about you, or it's not, a slight on you. If he loves you, he does not want to put his stuff on you. There are things that men carry, there are things that women carry. There are things that we can process better than you can, and vice versa. And so if he loves you and he's a good man, he's gonna process. He may call his buddies and process with them so that when he comes to you and tells you what it is, it's already been processed. It's those juvenile, men and, man boys that we see out there getting these relationships that put it all out there and process on their women in these abusive relationships. And that's not love. That's codependency or whatever, some trauma bonding or whatever it is. But a real man, who values his peace and values his woman and values his relationship will not want to put that on you. So allow him to process because he wants to process it, do it internally. Maybe he talks to his boys and then he comes to you with the process. He comes to you with the finished product. Like, okay, now I can give this to you. Now this is palatable. Now we can talk about this. All that other stuff you didn't want to, that's not your work. That's not your business. You don't need to be in the middle of the process because then, those are things that men, they don't want to put on their woman. They don't want to put on their family. So if he loves you and he cares about you, he's gonna process the way he processes, and allow him to do that because 'cause it'll be much
Mhm.
better for you and him.
Yeah, generally speaking, men value and we honor peace. We don't like conflict. I mean,
Mhm.
to men, conflict can equal fighting, and fighting can equal death
Yep.
in our world. So conflict is a quick way to not be here anymore, and so that's in a man's world. That's the way that whole thing works. If you come across a man who loves conflict and who loves to fight and argue and all that kind of stuff, he's got some unresolved, some unprocessed boy stuff he needs to work out. But generally speaking, we don't. We might build big weapons, we build big weapons in the hopes that it prevents war, because war means death to us, and so we do value peace. We do those of us that have at least processed or dealt with some stuff. We do value that, and we want you to be part of it as the women in our lives. And so we hope you understand that. We hope you honor that, and we hope we can share that peace. We hope we can multiply and amplify that peace. In our homes, in our relationships, in our families, in our workplace, and in all of those parts of who we are as men.
Yeah, find yourself a man who values peace because that man has probably processed through all his boyhood stuff and his traumas, and now he's gotten to the point where peace is his number one. He may seem boring on the outside, but that man's got a lot going on the inside. He's stable. He's the rock. He's strong mentally, physically, emotionally, and find yourself a man who values peace and honor that peace. And until next time, we are the Madmen of Masculinity, and we are out. Peace.